Welcome in to Make Your Money Matter. I'm your host, Brad Barrett, and our goal on this show each week is to help you create a better relationship with your money. And today on our show, I want to talk about 3 strategies that I discuss with our clients here all the time at One Capital on how to build wealth and secure your financial future. Now, these 3 strategies I'm going to go through, you should keep in mind as you embark really on your path to wealth accumulation and financial security. But before we get started, make sure to smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. All right, let's get into it. So as I talk about wealth accumulation and financial security and really your overall financial future, I think it's important to start out with saying this. For those looking to attain financial freedom by investing, which is what we should be doing, know this. It's rarely, friends, rarely a get-rich-quick scheme. Sure, there are those out there who have made a fortune from one stock purchase or something out there like a lottery, but it's seldom, it's not the norm. Most successful investors that I deal with creates a long-term plan and they make adjustments as years go by and opportunities arise. So when you start investing for your future, the possibilities can, I think, really seem overwhelming to many, right? And while it's important to maintain diversity in your investments, there are options going to work out there for you that work better for your individual needs than, say, others. So it's kind of important, right, to talk through these. So when I talk about these 3 strategies, I want to start off with this one. It's simple. Start small, baby steps. Walk before we run. It's pretty common knowledge that the earlier you can start investing, the longer your assets have to grow or provide income, right? I share this all the time. The number one commodity that we all have in our life is our time. The longer you give yourself to help with things such as investing, the better your outcomes become. Just look at any data sets on this. Now, the caveat to this, the devil's advocate, the catch-22, whatever you want to call it, comes into play from the fact that many people in their 20s, for example, don't have a lot of expendable cash available for investing. They want to start building wealth, but they don't see a way that they can afford to do so. I see this all the time, which is why I want to start off with this number 1 here of starting small. If that sounds familiar, by the way, I think it's time to have a look into investments that are minimal or creative. Look, I know buying a $5 million apartment complex might be a fanciful notion, and it might seem really great for some side hustle you're listening to on some social media influencer and this, that, and the other. But most working people can find a way to at least defer, let's say 3% into their IRA or 401k, especially if their employer is matching that deferral. Don't overlook that. It's a no-brainer, right? So number 1, start small. It's really important. Don't lose the forest for the trees. That's number 1. Number 2, use your knowledge base to your advantage. I say it this way, know who you are. Really discover who you are in your investing world and your investing self, because it's going to play out in your investing life, in your financial life. Look, with enough time and dedication, you can actually probably learn enough to effectively navigate really any investment category. But if your life experience, let's say, has led to an in-depth knowledge of a certain, for example, I think it'd be foolish not to take advantage of it, right? As an example, not very many people would dip their toes into investing by speculating in futures, let's say, right? This asset class involves agreeing to sell like oil, such as crude oil, for a set price at a later date. Now, it's a volatile process that requires a speculator to account for global climate trends and a whole bunch of stuff. And it really sounds really sexy and fun, right? But, take the disruption in the Middle East that's going on, right? Take what we saw last year in the crisis in Ukraine. All of these caused certain prices with oil, in my example, to be impacted. Now, this is an example, obviously, but compared to the relatively simple process of, say buying a single family home and renting it out, the intricacies can be somewhat daunting. But what if you grew up, say, in an oil family? Let's say you grew up in the Panhandle in Texas or Oklahoma. You have somewhat of an exposure to it that maybe someone on the West Coast doesn't, or East Coast. Even if you don't end up working in the industry, for example, you're still likely to possess a solid oil production knowledge potentially, right? Again, just an example, but use it for your own life. And I want to say this because I think compared to someone else whose knowledge is somewhat different, let's say, maybe they're into grains or soybeans, or they grew up in a corporate family, right? Whatever. The speculation might be a little bit of a different process. You can always branch into other areas later to diversify your portfolio, as I said. But when it comes to building an investment foundation, they'll provide long-term income and wealth if you look at it from who you are. Look at your personal history. Find out what you're used to, and let's focus on that first. Do you first. It's really that simple, all right? The first 2 steps are really small and simple, right? Start small, and then the second one is use your knowledge base. Understand who you are. Work within your wherewithal, right? because nothing there requires someone else. It's important to look within first. And the third one I'm going to bring up, and I know this is, I'm going to kind of throw it up here because at the end of the day, whether you're young or you're older, you're going to deal with this. And the third one is don't neglect the tax considerations and consequences. Acquiring wealth is one thing, but keeping your wealth is a whole other thing, all right? If you're truly investing for the long haul, you should consider how to make sure you retain what it is that you saved, invested, earned, and worked for. Now, for those of you who have invested heavily, let's say in the stock market, it's tempting to adopt a trade-heavy wheeler-dealer approach kind of thing. But besides the fact that, look, I can go into this, that frequent traders, have lower success due to emotional factors, again, separate matter, there are also tax ramifications to frequent trades if they're done in an after-tax account. Most people don't realize that if you trade within a deferred account, like a 401k or an IRA, not so much. And I always say this, I'm going to share it here again on number 3. It's not always what you own, but how you own it. Choosing where to put your money, for example, is another instance I just brought up here in which you have to and need to take in consideration the taxes, right? Like if you have a few $1,000s that you're considering putting into an IRA, maybe it's looking at a health savings account, for example, first, or in lieu of, or in addition to. Understanding what you have in front of you helps. And then you want to create an individual and diversified and integrated plan, which will encompass things like taxes. A lot of words I just threw at you there, but important nonetheless. And I'll put a bow on this conversation this way. 2 of the biggest rules, I think, for investing are, number 1, invest according to your goals. Not your neighbors, your family members, your advisors, someone else's, your goals. Invest according to your goals. Number 2, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Those sentiments might sound obvious and somewhat normalized and simplified, but keeping them at the core, I think, of your investment strategies will serve you well in the long run. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that today. If you did, make sure to subscribe to our show so you don't miss a single episode. And always remember to make your money matter.